Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Note to Self. Today, I have a very special guest who is with me in person today. Lo, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey, Zoe. How's it going?
Good. I'm so happy to have you here. For those of you who may not be familiar, I feel most of you are, though. Lo and I actually had a podcast for many years called The Lo and Zoe Show. And what was that about, Lo?
That was about just all things manifesting and like spirituality, self-development. We talked a lot about things that it's so interesting. How many episodes did we have about like our quantum men that we were manifesting? And it was just Zoe and I kind of recording, our thoughts and our own growth and our friendship at a time when we were both living in Toronto. And now we're back. We don't have the podcast anymore, at least not currently anyways. It's kind of like come and gone throughout the years, but I don't know. I'm just so excited to be.
Yeah, we thought it would be really cool to do a bit of a catch-up episode on where we're both at in our lives right now and a little bit of behind the scenes. And then sharing with you our views on reality, manifesting, all things quantum, as you guys know we would love to say and love to talk about. We definitely we're nerding out on all things quantum physics on the Lo and Zoe Show many times. So we're just going to share our present views on reality and how we're moving through life and trust that there's lots of awesome insights for you guys.
Yeah, I guess a little backstory is Zoe and I met, when would that have been, like 2016, 10 years ago?
Mm-hmm.
That's wild. We actually connected on Bumble BFF. And we were both vegan YouTubers at the time. And so, yeah, we became fast friends. And then you kind of were my introduction into manifesting. I remember you talking about it at a time when I had no awareness of what it meant to manifest and was really not spiritual at all. But then obviously that changed and we had a big portion. We both had coaching businesses. Obviously Zoe still does. I've moved on to something else that I'm sure we'll talk about. But we did a big portion of our business together. We had multiple courses, our main one being the Quantum Creators course, which I'm sure many of your listeners were in. That course still holds a very special place in my heart. We had a mastermind. We had all kinds of things that we had a membership at one point. It's just so crazy to look back on all that. And obviously we had the Lo and Zoe Show and a Facebook group and it was almost a whole business together.
Yeah,
that we had.
It was so much fun, especially for that time, because that was when there was really just such an abundance of that content and people searching for it starting to come through, almost like a surge of curiosity people had. And at that time, Lo and I, recording the Lo and Zoe Show I'm talking about is a few years before that, we were definitely listening to Abraham Hicks, practicing manifesting. Once I introduced it to you, we started to talk about that more and started to just witness it happen in our realities. I moved to Italy for a few years and Lo actually came to visit at one point. And it was you that introduced Dr. Joe Dispenza to me. You're like, hey, Zoe, there's a whole other level to this manifesting stuff. You just got to read this book. You just got to check this out. And it took a little while. And once I read it, I was like, oh my gosh, this is incredible, because it really bridged the gap between something that was intangible, the spirituality aspect of it, and brought it down to something tangible in reality that I felt we could speak to more people about. And then that was, I think, where the inspiration for the Lo and Zoe Show came, because we're oh my gosh, we want to talk about confidence. We want to talk about spirituality. We want to talk about manifesting. And we were just looking for a platform to really build a community.
And I think it was always everything that we did, every course, every episode, every live stream, it was just us sharing and navigating our own journey through, creating our own realities and learning things. And I mean, I think there's so much just inner work that both you and I have done and shared a lot of that on our podcast. So yeah, it was kind of just I remember the idea for the Lo and Zoe Show came when I was sitting in your apartment one day, or maybe it was in Italy, I feel like. And we were just having these conversations and I was like, Zoe, we should just record this so that other people can hear, because these are the kinds of conversations we're always having. And that was the Lo. And I remember saying to you, and we could call it the Lo and Zoe Show.
Yes. And it was perfect. And it was so much fun for that chapter of us both living in Toronto, very close to each other, because we would just get together on the weekends and record. And we were on such a path of just acceleration, I'd say, and everything we were learning about our businesses, about manifesting, like just creating your reality in general.
Yeah, and then COVID happened. And for the first like all of 2020, that was actually like, well, remember before COVID happened, we actually like were recording the podcast at like a sound studio in Toronto we had manifested. And yeah, and then COVID happened and we continued like for all of 2020, we were still very much like you were in Toronto, we were still in Toronto, we were continuing to build, but you decided to leave for Bali early 2021 and we continued like recording remotely and stuff like that. But that was at a time when things were really starting to like just I was having a big ego death in many ways. We've talked about this before, but my business was kind of like falling apart. I was not feeling aligned with it. I was feeling very like just unsure of what was next and like how to progress with things. And it's like crazy looking back. It's like very full circle to now. Zoe has moved back to Toronto. I'm no longer in the city. I'm about 2 hours outside. And just to see how much has changed for both of us. And I feel like that's maybe what we should talk about is like, yeah, just like we're living very different lives now. Ones that I feel like we used to talk about desiring. And I think the main thing that comes to mind is our quantum men, both of which we had interviewed on the Lo and Zoe show.
Yes, those were such fun episodes because it really was these full circle moments. Like we would talk about the ways in which we were manifesting or creating those relationships in our lives, how we were imagining being with them and experiencing that. And now we're at these places and phases in our lives. I mean, Lo's engaged. Congratulations to Lo.
And Zoe's one of my bridesmaids.
Yes. And I'm so excited. I feel like, I mean, maybe we'll have to do another episode in the summertime leading up to that or post-wedding to update everyone. But yeah, there's just so many beautiful things happening in life. And it's really interesting how like everything that we've desired for came to fruition, but like not in the way that we expected it to. Of course not. But like we're here. We're here in the future, I guess, to those previous versions of ourselves. Just like, okay, it all did happen and it's all still happening.
Yeah. Well, and like I think the ways in which things have unfolded for both of us in the last 3-4 years have really changed both of our like core philosophies when it comes to manifestation and it comes to creating our reality. Because the way that we used to approach things was very like, I don't know if I want to use the word controlling because it didn't feel that way at the time, but it was very like masculine energy driven of like, okay, we're claiming this thing that we want. We're unavailable for anything else. And I'm not saying that there's no merit in that. There's a lot of people that still approach creation in that way. But Zoe and I have felt very like sort of in sync together with just being drawn away from that approach. And my like core philosophy now is much more like of a receiving kind of like allowing space, I would say. And for me, it's not that the quantum creation and that doesn't work. It's still very, I know those things to be true. It's that I'm not drawn to them anymore. And every time I try to, you know, demand something into my reality, I'm like, I stop myself before I can even start because I just don't have the energy or the desire to approach things that way anymore. And I also, with the experiences I've had over the last sort of 4 or 5 years of having my previous business kind of fall apart, meeting Eric at like my lowest point, which I didn't think was possible. I thought you like had to be, you know, in your best self in order to attract your equal. And instead I was sent him at a time that I desperately needed his support. And he was a big part of like me moving forward at a time in my life when I felt very stuck in rock bottom. And then I started a whole new business and my life took this entirely different, you know, direction. Now we live like far outside the city. I thought I was going to live in the city in a penthouse for the rest of my life. You know, like I wanted a life that I thought I wanted, a life that looks so very different from the one that I am now living. And the one that I'm now living feels so resonant for me that it has changed the way I think about creation, where it's much more about something bigger. It's much more about divine intervention or divine timing of things. And it's almost like, I was saying it to Zoe, I just can't bring myself to generate myself in the way that I used to, where it's like, okay, I'm choosing to feel these feelings. I'm choosing to think these thoughts, all of that, while still valuable for many, it feels really like inauthentic to me or something. And when I say inauthentic, what I mean is it's not coming naturally. I have to force it. And I just like can't get my energy on board with that anymore, because I think what life has shown me just doesn't align with, like, my beliefs now don't align with that approach to things. Does that make sense?
Yes, it's like a divine relax into receptivity, but I would say, like, for me personally, where that came from is like this ego death. It's like stripping back all of these layers of everything that I thought I wanted, you know, all these attachments that I had, levels of control that I had. And I mean, ego deaths, you guys, you're listening to this, you've probably been through them. You might be going through one right now. Like, they're deeply uncomfortable because it's like identities of yourself are dying or collapsing inside of your body. And it's like, oh my gosh, like, just the graspiness, the energy. It's like, it's a lot. It's a lot. But what happens after that is you realize what's actually important, or what actually creates a feeling of fulfillment inside, what has your heart feeling happy, what has your nervous system being relaxed, what has your mind at peace. And I think, like, just, we used to talk about how everybody's always like, what everybody wants through manifesting is like these feelings. And like, one of the main feelings that people are actually always searching for is freedom. And I think, like, I thought freedom was like maybe a sense of like having a lot of money, like wealth. I was like associating that with different things, but now I'm like, oh no, actually more freedom. Of course, like abundance and all of that, but like freedom is actually just like waking up each day with a relaxed nervous system in a cozy, beautiful home, like with my partner that I love so much, and having like a very enjoyable day, like day to day, just having fun. Like, it's like life got a lot more rich when I started to understand what it actually meant to have peace of mind.
I think I feel like this is true for you as well. What created that shift for me was many ego deaths, where the things that I had and the like certain level of success I had accomplished, I was collapsing into, you know, my identity. Basically, I am this successful business. I am this car that I drive. I am this apartment that I live in with the beautiful view and it looks great on Instagram. And like, it sounds like, if I say it that, you know, point blank, it's like, well, of course you're not your apartment. But I didn't have conscious awareness around this, because we live in a world where it is about what you have, what you accomplish, how you look, how others relate to you. Like, we were taught that from such a young age to seek value in the things that are outside of us. And I just didn't realize the extent to which I was doing that. And so when I started to really struggle, and my business at the time started to really, you know, go downhill, and that meant that all this constructed reality, this constructed identity started to like just crumble in front of me. It was so hard to be with. I felt so unsafe because I didn't know who I was. I didn't feel, it's not even that I didn't know who I was, because I've always had like a pretty strong sense of self. It's that I didn't feel like I would be okay, or that I was good enough, or like, we did a fantastic mastermind that we still talk about. I think it was fantastic. It was such a good curriculum, called Divinity. And we talk about how the things we're attached to, it's almost always like that sense of attachment of needing something is because that thing that we want is actually our source of something deeper that we're not even realizing we think we need. So for me, having a certain level of success was like belonging. Like, well, I don't have a partner and I don't have kids yet, and I'm not married, and all these other areas of my lives are not what I thought they would be, but at least I have, you know, this thing to show for my existence. That means that it's okay to be where I'm at. And so as those things kind of fell apart, I had to like really just come to know the version of myself who had nothing, you know, no partner, no money, no like an apartment I couldn't afford anymore. I did eventually move home with my parents for a period of time. And so it was one of the best things that ever happened to me, even though it felt like the absolute worst at the time, because now I feel like the masculine approach to manifesting, I don't have energy for it, because I don't want things that are like for the wrong reason. I don't need the fancy car because I think it makes me look good on Instagram. I don't care. I don't care how I look on Instagram, you know? Like, I don't need a certain level of money or success so that other people view me in a certain light. I don't care about that. I had to meet the part of myself who was okay without any of it. You know what I mean? And we did an episode on our podcast about like our false identities that were like crumbling. And I know you talked about travel and like sharing it online as like a means of, you know, kind of creating a version of Zoe that you were proud to share.
Yes. Yeah. I think, yeah, for me too, there was big identity attached to where I lived or were traveling. And I think I experienced a bit of like some kind of an ego death first when I left Italy and moved back to Canada.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's also when I realized that I wasn't resonating so much with being on YouTube anymore. Like I realized
Right.
that what I wanted to share, what I felt called to share was more in alignment like this, like self-development, spirituality, improvement. But everyone, for the most part, who was following me on YouTube, the larger I guess percentage of my audience was there for the travel, was there for
Right.
this girl that lives in Italy and the travel. And so there was an influx of comments, I remember, that really started to affect me in a way of like, you're, you know, let's say not cool anymore because you moved back to Toronto, or like, what's wrong with this girl? Like, you know, and there was a lot that I was personally going through at that time. That's when I went through my life coaching course and got certified as a coach, and I started to work with people, and I was transitioning in my career. So it still was a very beautiful time, but there was this whole identity of like Zoe who like made her biggest dream a reality, and then I was like on to a different dream, but wasn't the dream that was resonating more with other people. And so in that, and also again, I was so used to showing up and sharing on YouTube for many years. I showed up at least twice a week with videos, and like that was my primary source of income. That was the thing that took me out of my 9 to 5, and I realized I didn't want to do that anymore. It just wasn't feeling the same way. You know, and things transitioned. We started the podcast, but yeah, a large portion of my identity was attached to travel, and then even to, I think another big transformation was when I left Toronto to move to Bali during the pandemic. And I realized like that I was very burnt out. There was things, I think it's when I first started to discover my nervous system, like what that meant. There was things stored and locked away in my body that were wreaking havoc in ways like creating anxiety, just struggle. And I realized that, oh, there's deeper work for me. I thought I was going to move to Bali and have my eat, pray, love moment, fall in love, and that was going to be it. I was going to maybe live in Indonesia for the rest of my life on some cool island, but no, the universe had a different plan, as it always does. And so the next level of like identities collapsing was like the disconnect I had from my body, you know, thinking I needed to dress in the nicest clothes or like do my makeup, you know, to feel pretty and like all of that. And I lived on this island for 2 years, like wore makeup like twice or 3 times for photo shoots. And like, that's it. It was a next level of liberation that started to happen. And also veganism. I stopped being vegan. Another identity collapse. Like they just kept happening. And then, you know, in more recent times, like I think, well, no, I think I should speak a little bit to heartbreak, a version of heartbreak that sent me into my abandonment wounds, cleaned up those very shortly after my now partner came into my life. Like it was all leading somewhere else. And what I will say too is like in the last year, it's coming up to almost being a year since my older brother passed away. And that was a whole other, like a massive collapse, because what happens for those of you who have been through grief of someone like so close to you like that, just like you, of course, it's a long healing journey and it's a very deep healing journey, but like things that you thought mattered, just like you just don't care about anymore. And it's pretty overnight that happens. So massive collapse in identity, like the things that I used to like strive for. I would say the ego-based things, of course, is ego death. Like you know, let's say the flashy things in life or whatever. Like I still appreciate and love nice things. When I buy things for myself, I seek out buying something of quality. It's like I treat things as like investments, but like my view on like what is actually important for me in my life is much different than, let's say, it was like a year and a half ago. And all that's just kind of led me to this place here now where I have a level of trust with the universe that I've never had before. Of course, always doing the nervous system work, but more relaxation, more peace of mind, just feeling like cozy. I don't know. It's almost like my heart has a place to rest that it felt so restless for my whole life. Like we actually off the podcast, we were talking about searching, sort of this essence of like searching. I feel like we should tap into that for a moment, Lo, because you had some great insights on that. But it's almost like my heart has stopped like searching so much, and it's like started to just rest in life. I think like just hearing of like us catching up for the last 2 days too, like you've got this beautiful sense of resting too in your beautiful home in Collingwood, like with Eric. And
well, I think, everything that we're talking about in terms of losses and, a business falling apart and all of the things that you just talked about in terms of identity shifts, what they've all had in common is that they forced us to meet a part of ourselves that previously we would avoid or run away from by covering it up with accomplishments, with manifestations, with fancy travel or whatever, right? Like there was the ability to escape things that we didn't want to have to look at. We didn't even know we needed to look at. That's the thing. Most of it's unconscious. And I think that's where attachment honestly comes from. Like you really, really, really want something when you feel like you're not going to be okay, or you can't face the part of yourself who doesn't have it, right? Like a good example is a relationship. Like I was going through old journals this past week because I'm like writing my vows, and there were so many times I scripted about the man that I'm now manifesting, like long before I met him, and I was like, oh, this would be great for some vow material. And just reading entries from so many past versions of myself that was desperate for love, honestly, for desperate for romantic connection. And it's like hard for me to even remember what that felt like, because not long before I met Eric, like I had done so much work to just like really find peace with myself. But it took such a long time to be willing to just sit with that, like with that discomfort. Because before that, it's like, yeah, there's these parts of ourselves that feel so unsafe to be with. And I've witnessed Zoe do this countless times on so many different levels. But the thing is that when you're willing to sit with that part of yourself and accept that part of yourself, now it's not something you need to run from. And so all the things that you were desperately trying to get or create or accomplish, you might still want some of those things, but it's from such a different place. Like there's just not a lot of ego involved in anything that I desire anymore, because I sat with the 35-year-old version of myself who lived at home, who had no money, no business, no career. I had already met Eric at that point, and I think that did help me survive it. But I know her now. I love her. She's not someone that needs to be covered up in accomplishments. So I'm creating in our mastermind. We talk about creating from nothing. So much of the time we are creating from insecurity, we're creating from not enoughness, we're creating from lack, we're creating from fear. And I didn't realize, and like those things are very motivating, right? Like we manifest a heck of a lot of stuff from trauma, from things that we don't want to have to look at. And when you actually just meet those parts of yourself, it's so freeing, because you're now creating from nothing. Right? Like the desire is just desire. The desire is not need. The desire is not belonging. The desire is not feeling like I'm not going to be safe and okay. It's not safety. It's not security. It's just desire. And I think because of that, now when I look back to some of the ways in which I used to approach manifestation practices and principles, I just can't get my energy there, because the part of myself that was so driven to make those things happen, she's not there anymore, because she was never actually the truth of who I am to begin with.
yes.
And that's what I've witnessed in you as well.
Yeah, totally. Like I think about the previous version of myself. I mean, we had so much fun. Like life was
so
still
fun.
awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, and maybe some of you out there can relate to it. Maybe you can't, but it's like, or because I think so much of that stuff was very subconscious. Like
Totally.
we didn't know that we were running from things. Like
Yeah.
I didn't know, like, when I was traveling Europe, when I like lived over there, I didn't know that I was running away from my anxiety, because I just didn't want to look at, my past and what was calling to be healed. I didn't know that. I was just like operating from the space of like, okay, discomfort is arising in my system. Let me book a trip. Let me do something spontaneous that sounds fun.
Yeah.
And so I was always just, at that point in time, like I was doing what I knew best to take care of Zoe, which was like, okay, Zoe was feeling a little bit down, or she's feeling a bit anxious. She's struggling in some way. What do I know excites her? Travel does. Okay, so I'm going to buy her a trip. And like that was sort of like a pattern that I was operating in. But that hypervigilance, that manifesting, or that taking action from that place of hypervigilance, like there's only so long you can run for. And like that's when these ego deaths come. Like it's just like a part of like the ego deaths are like they're coming. They're coming, and they're about to, slay you in these ways. Like I think about previous versions of myself. It's nothing to be afraid of either. I don't mean to like invoke any fear or anything like that. They're great. I mean,
well, they
in hindsight, it's 2020.
They're uncomfortable because you resist them. Because
yes,
they feel so. But then it's like a whole other life on the other side.
Of course, and it's like in that you get the opportunity to embrace yourself, and that is when you truly start to understand what unconditional love is for yourself. Like Lowe's talking about these moments where you got to meet yourself, like when you were at your parents', but you got to meet yourself and you love yourself. I got to meet myself. Like I remember when, I navigated this bit of heartbreak, we'll call it, but like this opportunity, this invitation to really go down into like my abandonment wound and my rejection wound. And it's like, I didn't know those things existed, but I received an invitation into them. And I decided that in that invitation, I'm going to go down to these depths. I'm going to clean this stuff out because I already know from the past that like history will repeat itself until the lesson is learned, or what is in your subconscious will continue to be made manifest in your life until you're willing to heal it for yourself. So it's always an opportunity. It takes mustering up a bit of courage and embracing it. And it's the resistance that drags on that's uncomfortable, because it's like something's here, like what is it? I'm uncomfortable, or I'm starting to feel a bit like depressive or like anxious, or like what is here? That's the most uncomfortable part, because that's the resistance of that thing starting to be made a bit more conscious in your life. And yeah, sometimes there's events that are the ego death, like losing someone close to you, or like maybe a breakup or something like that. But sometimes the ego deaths just kind of like happen like a bit of a tidal wave. Like it builds, and then you have no choice but to surrender into that healing journey. But again, it's something to be embraced, because what's on the other side of that is this piece, like not caring what anyone thinks, like actually being liberated from like the hamster wheel of like, comparison or keeping up with people or being affected by social media in different ways, and like, feeling like a people pleaser, or, there's so many different aspects or dimensions of the self that get cleaned up through these different identity collapses. And so in that, it is such a gift. It's a gift to receive. So, for example, even if you are in your ego death right now, like look at the theme, like what is it about? Like, okay, then imagine what or who you're going to be on the other side of this, right? So if you're going through an ego death that feels like it's very spiritual, okay, so most likely on the other side, there's deep levels of inner peace, deep levels of self-trust and trust in God, source, universe that are on the other side of that. Oh my gosh, how much more rich will your life feel with that? Or if you're going through a heartbreak right now and you're meeting those levels of yourself, like the depths of your heart, okay, you're cleaning up, let's say, abandonment or rejection or, fears in different ways. Okay, you're going to be liberated from that on the other side. And like, that's what creates a fulfilling life. Like, that's what allows for a deeper connection with yourself and, to operate from a place of receptivity, peace, and not generating, as Lo mentioned, because the generating, it gets more and more challenging to do until like you just can't operate that way anymore. Yeah. And it's uncomfortable because all you might have ever known is operating from a place of generating like, a sort of forcefulness energy to get things done. Like I remember in Italy, I used to drink like 4+ espressos a day to like be at a coffee shop all day, like editing videos. And like, it was such a grind, like loved it for what it was. But like, I can't even imagine consuming, if I consumed that amount of caffeine right now, like, oh my gosh, you bet be I'd be like going to the hospital or something like that. My system can't operate like that anymore. Mm-hmm. Straight up.
Yeah. What all of these things have in common, like what I've witnessed in myself, in you, in other friends that are on similar journeys over and over and over again, is that if there is something you really want that has really evaded you for a long time, so the body, the relationship, maybe you've had debt for an extended period of time, anything that feels really persistent in your reality, what I've seen every single time is that there is a part of ourselves we do not want to meet. And so we're trying, it's like Zoe and I have talked a lot about debt. Like I've navigated different journeys of debt throughout my entire adult life because I took on student loans as soon as I turned 18 before I really even knew what that meant. And it's just been this like persistent experience in my reality. But every time I have like either not been able to get out of debt or I've gotten out of debt and then it's come back, it's because I was always manifesting from a place of trying to cover up or like erase the things that I didn't want to meet about myself. So ways in which I was making myself wrong, ways in which I was judging myself, ways in which I was feeling really shameful. And the answer to something like that, or like, I mean, I think a good example is like the relationship stuff, is like, I just really sat with the part of myself who felt she needed love from another person, felt, you know, like she wasn't good enough if she didn't have that, or the part of myself who didn't have a thriving business or career. Like, and it's really uncomfortable. I watched Zoe do this, like the heartbreak that you mentioned briefly. I think about that example of it all the time because watching it from the outside, it was so clear that for the first time in your life, you were really sitting with little Zoe. Like, you were really with her. And previous to that, I had witnessed you like do every possible, you know, therapy there was under the sun and plant medicine under the sun. And these can be really fantastic tools. But the place that I think you were most often doing them from was trying to fix something about yourself. Would you say that's correct?
Definitely.
Like, like I'm not worthy of love, or I've been made to feel not worthy by my childhood, or whatever, generational trauma. And I need to fill in a gap that's here. So we're like trying to fill something in. So I'll go to, you know, every therapist, I'll do every affirmation, I'll take every course. And the one thing that we're not doing is the thing that in the end had, you know, your now partner come right into your life, and quickly too. Like, I witnessed you just be with yourself in such an intimate way that I know was so deeply uncomfortable. Like, you just sat with the heartbreak, you just sat with all the parts of yourself, and you came out on the other side in not even a long period of time. I feel like it took you a couple of months, and you were like, I'm actually good. I have like chills thinking back to this. You're like, I'm actually good. Like, I think I'm good. I don't actually need this love anymore. Another person I've heard talking about this is Amanda Francis. She has a course I've taken called Turning Shit into Gold. And I bought that course because inside of it, there's a 2-hour module where she talks about doing the same thing. She like sat with every part of herself after a breakup that she previously had tried to cover up with trying to manifest her soulmate. And on the other side, you've transmuted that like avoidant energy, that rejection energy you're showing yourself. And you're like, I got me, right? I showed myself that I got me. I'm good. And I remember saying to you, you were like, I think I'm actually like, I'm really okay if this happens or not. And I was like, oh, Zoe, he's coming right in. And he did. Like, weeks later, I feel like.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I love that. I love remembering that too, because like, I think sometimes when things feel so big, like I could say that the idea of manifesting my partner, my soulmate, it was like fun to, right, we would call it go to the quantum, like start to practice manifesting him, right? Speaking into him. But the work under the surface, it was almost like if I were to like open that trap door, it was like, you know, the bottom of an iceberg, you know, when you see like the iceberg points a little bit up out of the water, but there was a whole bunch of stuff underneath. What I want to say to you, when you're ready, if you embrace the opportunity or the invitation, it can happen quickly. Because I remember you saying, Lo, like you said after the fact, you were like, you know, when this all happened for you, like I thought it was going to take a long time for you to get over this. Like I thought it was going to be like a year or like more for you to like get over this.
Because it was really sad what happened.
It was super sad. It touched on like deep places of myself. It was the most vulnerable that I'd like ever been in a relationship at that point in my life. And then, you know, it really took me, I would say, a solid month. I intentionally did a diet with Rose. Like I was very intentional about like, okay, I'm intending for unconditional love with myself. I'm going to make this happen. I'm going to hold myself in a container. And every day I just showed up for the work. I had, you know, I still had my work that I was doing like with clients and whatnot, but in my own time, I dedicated myself to like feeling the emotions, understanding myself, doing a lot of forgiveness work, like consuming content that felt like it was really speaking to me on that level of like universal consciousness and support and love, a return to love ultimately. And you know, within a month I felt so much better, and I would say after you know, another 2 months I felt completely liberated from it. And it just kept getting better and better. My now partner came in very quickly into my life, and it's just been like magic. It like helped me trust, and it helped me show up as the version of myself in love and relationships that I know myself to be, because someone who has a lot of capacity, has a lot to give, like has a huge heart. Like I was finally able to get to know that heart myself so I could give it to another. And you know, you talked a little bit low about like, you know, we avoid these things, or we manifest on top of it, or we like think there's something to fix. And it's like, if like what's coming to me now is like, if there's any area of your life that you feel that way, like just start to open up to like, okay, what could that work look like? And we talk about sitting with it. So I want to give like a little bit of details of like, what does it actually mean to like sit with it? Like, what does it actually mean to be with it? Because I know like sometimes when people talk about these topics, it's like, okay, well, how? Like, how do I take the next step for myself? So I'm telling, like, if there's an invitation in your life, that's great. If there's not, you're sensing it, great. Like, you can start wherever. But I can say, like, with the heartbreak, it was like, okay, here I am in all my feels. I feel so, you know, devastated, sad, rejected, abandoned, like all those things. I just started to like practice literally sitting like in a meditative state, or, you know, lying down, just like being present in my body. Starting to practice being in my body with these sensations, with these feelings, letting the emotions flow through, letting the tears come out, letting the anger flow through. And, you know, it can be hard because I think some of these emotions, especially anger, as women, we're taught, no, don't feel those. You're supposed to be, you know, neat and tidy and sweet all the time. And, you know, anger can feel all consuming and fiery and ragey. But it's important to get those things out, because what's on the other side is clarity, is peace. They're out of your body. They're not wreaking havoc anymore. So it's literally like being present in your body. For you, Lo, what were some of the things that you did to be with yourself in those moments?
Yeah. So for me, being with that part of myself, it's a lot of what you just described. It's like feeling the uncomfortable emotions and not trying to run from them or push them down or cover them up or anything. Like a lot of the things that we do, we like cover things up with food and stimulants like alcohol and, you know, shopping, and social media is a huge one. And instead just being like, this isn't something I have to escape. And I think a really important part is like, because people will be like, but if you're manifesting and you're like indulging in these emotions, isn't that bad? The way that I started to really think about it was like, intention matters. So when I am being with these emotions, it's from an intention of like, you know, listening to that part of myself, like transmuting. I decided that by being with these emotions for however long I needed to be, and with this part of myself, that I was transmuting that energy. I was transforming it, right? So it's not just like feeling sad for the sake of feeling sad, or feeling anxious for the sake of feeling anxious. It's like feeling anxious because that's the part of you that you would usually, you know, reject, basically. And I mean, I think with different areas of your life, it like when it comes to romantic relationships, that is purely emotional. But I think about like body stuff, for example. That's like, since getting engaged, the body stuff, like I've always had basically my mom's relationship with her body, I have with mine. Like she just, for my whole life, I watched her like diet, you know, go on every diet, just be really hard on her body. And I look just like her. Like we have like the same build and everything. And it was something I really, you know, kind of took on from a young age that I've done a lot of work on, but it's been something that was easy for me to just kind of like shove down. And then, you know, I got engaged and I started thinking about a wedding, and it's not so much about losing weight, but just feeling the way that I want to in my body on that day. And when I think about that area of my life, it's like, I very rarely am just with my body. In fact, I avoid it. Like I'll, you know, I get out of the shower and I don't look in the mirror, or like, you know, there's photos of me, I like skip past them quickly. Like I'm always trying to, and it's not, you know, it makes it sound like I'm struggling with like a serious weight issue or anything. It's not that at all. Like I have a very healthy body. It's like, a lot of the time it's not even the circumstance, it's just the relationship that you have with these different areas of your life. And it's created a lot of like just lack of peace of mind for me on the topic of my body, because I, for my whole life, have like kind of idealized a very specific, you know, weight, like almost unattainable level of, you know, just what my body should look like. And like growing up in the 90s was not helpful in that regard. So many of us millennial women know. But anyway, so as we're talking, I'm seeing even more ways in which I'm still not doing that work. Like I'm still doing everything there is to try and change this area of my life or heal this area of my life, but just like be in the mirror with myself, because that's uncomfortable for me, which is, that's the one thing I haven't done. The one thing I haven't like tried in terms of finding ease and peace of mind in this area of my life. And I should say that for me, a big part of this journey specifically is that I will not diet. Like, I will not punish my body. I don't believe anymore in, calorie restriction. And so it's like shifting my beliefs while also not being willing to do anything that's control based. Like, I just can't do it. I know that that's like not how I actually get. It's like, to have the relationship that I wanted, I had to let go of basically diet culture for dating, which was like controlling every text you send, always looking perfect, like trying to control things so that you could have a specific outcome. I really let that go, where I was like, I am deciding that just flowing and being exactly who I am in any given moment, that is enough to have great love in this area of my life. And then I met Eric, and like, I'm more myself with him than anyone in the world, right? But it's like, but that required, it's easier to like have these vices that give you this semblance or like a sense of control. Like, I'll diet so I can control this area. I'll project this certain version of myself so that I'm more desirable to the opposite sex or whatever. Is that making sense?
Yeah, completely. And what it also comes to mind is it's the masks that we might wear in particular areas. Like, we think we need to uphold these identities that don't feel natural. They do require a lot of our energy. So it's in the doing the work, in the being with, in the collapsing of that we have a lot more space. We actually have a lot more energy that we can then flow towards things that are like meaningful and important to us. And I think this is like where the big shifts in like life happen, like the big elevations or the big like up levels, like whatever that might be. They come from this very natural state of like, you've relaxed your system into receptivity. Like, we hear it's kind of like a bit of a buzz phrase now in like coaching culture, is relaxing into receptivity. And like what that actually means, I think, from what we're talking about, is the dismantling, dissolving of these like illusions that we felt like we had to uphold in order to get what we desired. But really, under the surface, when we tend to ourselves, when we meet ourselves deeply, and when we learn to honor our needs on those levels and take care of ourselves like that, everything else starts to come a lot more easy. Like, maybe if you're a business owner, clients start to flow in, like the money comes, or like love just, shows up very quickly. Like Lo said, she was like, oh yeah, your person's coming in, and like sure enough, he did. But I will say too, I was never taking action on like healing these things from this place of like, I'm healing this so that I can manifest my person. It was really genuinely coming from this space of, I'm healing because I don't want to suffer anymore. I'm healing because I don't want Zoe to carry these things in her subconscious. I'm healing because my body is asking me to, and I'm done having this fight with it. I'm done resisting. I'm done holding grudges and like all that stuff. It really genuinely came from a desire to heal on the deepest level, not a desire to get something on the other side of it.
Was that like, when you say that, was that all along, all the healing that you did, you felt came from that place? Or was there a time, or was that specifically when you were like sitting with your emotions? Because what I witnessed in you, it wasn't like I'm going to be with myself so that hopefully finally I can get what I want in this area. You were like, I'm going to be with myself because I'm too tired from running.
Yes.
Like, that's what I witnessed. But do you feel like you were always coming from that place?
Like in that specific healing of the heartbreak, or?
No, in previous, like, all the like work that you were doing for, probably a decade.
No, like with the partner.
Yeah.
No, that part was definitely like, whether it's like choosing to go to like a retreat or, doing something. It was like, okay, I'm going to go. It was the intention of like, I'm going to go heal this so that I can get this. Yeah. And what's interesting is, as you're talking about the body stuff, like I really struggled with that, like really intensely throughout high school and like into university. And I'm thinking about that journey and like then the healing of it with like both. There was two different things. They're kind of intertwined a little bit, but body image and food, and my relationship with food. And I don't know, trigger warning, because we're talking about something that's like a bit more sensitive. Like if it's something that I think, and I will say too, I think it's something that a lot of women, like, they have to reconcile these relationships with their body and food because it's everywhere.
Yeah.
Like we're just programmed. Okay, so no matter where you're at in that journey, it's perfect. But what really liberated me, because now I just, you know, I eat whatever I want. I take care of my body. I exercise, like right now, like thinking about this is like I exercise right now at home. Toronto, it's like polar vortex vibes.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna go outside.
It's freezing.
But like I have that level of like motivation and showing up for my body that's like, it's just who I am. Okay, it's on that identity level. Like it's on that level of like I'm here for myself. I'm serving myself, and not to get the body, not to maintain the body, but like it really is from this place of self-mastery where health, it's about health, it's about vitality, it's about wellness, it's about like I love taking care of me on this level. But it never, like in the past, like over a decade ago, like let's say you know, high school me or university me, it was like I would go to the gym and go on the elliptical for like an hour and a half. Like, where did I muster up that type of energy? Like, I would love to have that type of, you know.
And
like,
you knew exactly how many calories you burned.
oh my gosh. And I'm like, I was ready to just like throw in the towel with my relationship with myself because of like how much the struggle there was. It really was this place of like, I'm done suffering. And like, it's time for me to actually like make amends with this part of myself. Again, not from a place of like, I'm doing this so that I can get my best body. But I will say that like a result of doing that work, you know, got me a body that I love and I feel comfortable in, that's more comfortable and that I love more than ever before. Like, even though I'm aging, I love myself. Like, there's nothing that I'm like resisting there. And I love that. It's so pure. It's so special to me. But that wouldn't have been available to me if I didn't go to those levels, if I wasn't actually like, okay, I'm ready to make peace with myself, and not from a place of getting results, from a place of like, I'm done with the fight.
Well, and I think like a key part of that you said is like, I always talk about how, you know, sure, you can manifest temporarily on top of the lack or on top of what you're avoiding, but it generally doesn't stay. Or if it does, it's like, especially, you know, a relationship, it's really rocky. Like, or with your body, for example, you can lose weight on a diet, but most of those diets don't last because you didn't actually make, like, it was a cover up. It was a Band-Aid for a deeper issue. So when you're like I have so much peace now in like, you know, my romantic relationship. I know you feel the same way, Zoe, because I know I didn't manifest it from lack. Like, it was like, oh, I'm actually really good now. I'm with myself. I think this honestly would be fine. Like, if I got to a place in that area of my life where I was like, maybe this life, like, I'm not meant to have that in this life. And that sounds sort of like sad, but it was actually this acceptance of like, well, if I wasn't, you know, trying to find love and have a family, if I accepted that maybe this lifetime isn't for that, what else could it be for? Like, what if it was just about learning? What if it was about making art? What if it was about traveling the world? And I started to like get really engaged in that possibility. And so then when I met Eric, it was like, I love you. I don't need you to feel like I'm okay in life. And so it's created this ease where like, obviously I desire for that relationship to stay, and I'm very excited to marry him and everything. But when I look back on old journals, I needed that to feel okay. And anytime I had a relationship that was based in needing something because I was covering up the part of myself I would not meet, it was rocky because there was attachment to it, right? And so like, applying that to body, you accepted your body exactly as it was. You didn't need it to change anymore. And so then when you know, did see a physical transformation of whatever kind, it's not something you like desperately need to hold on to. Another person that talks about this all the time is my friend Tara, who like, she has all kinds of manifesting content and programs for Dream Body. Like, that's a big part of her niche. And she made peace with her body at like 40 pounds overweight. She said, I just like decided, and she had like almost 2 decades of binge eating and bulimia and like a really, really, you know, screwed up relationship with her body and with food. And she's like, I got to a place where I was really okay with it not changing. And so now she's like, the idea of gaining weight back doesn't bother me. I've been with that part of myself. It's fine. And so I don't believe, and I think this is the same for you, like you'll ever, you know, gain weight and keep it on, because you're not flowing energy or fear into that possibility. It's the same thing with like me and my business. I met the part of myself who did not have, a fancy, successful business to flaunt. And now if I could go back to not having that, it's not a big deal. So therefore I'm not like breathing energy into it out of fear, which we do a lot of the time. We're like, I don't want to look at that. I don't want to possibly gain the weight back because I hated the way that I felt about my body. And we're creating this like, we're actually giving it a lot of energy because we're resisting it. And what you resist persists.
Yeah, your attention is on it. Your
Exactly.
full focus is on it. And what you focus on expands. And like,
Yeah.
but it's like these more subtle ways in which we do that for the bigger things in our life that are creating the suffering or creating resistance or just a place where we're not feeling satisfied and fulfilled. I have this sticky note like on my computer right now. It says, it's a Wayne Dyer quote, but I love it. And I've been like sitting with this for the past couple of weeks. But if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. If you're looking at your body as like something that's like, never going to be what you want it to be, and if you're looking at it with, so much judgment of like, I'm fat or I'm ugly or what these just horrible things, right? It's hard for me to even like say that as an example because I'm like, this is my temple. Like it's the one thing that I'm given and I love it so much. I would never like speak like that about like this one vessel that carries me through this life. But like there was once upon a time where that was not the case. But again, I changed the way that I was looking at it, right? Every single time there was like something popping up like resistance or, I might look at a photo and think not so nice things, I would stop for a moment and I would start to just change. I would start to be with like, no, I would never want to speak to little Zoe like that, right? Like it's these little moments where you notice, ooh, there's a charge of something there. There's a charge of judgment. There's a charge of energy, emotion. And then using that as an invitation, an opportunity to transmute it, to alchemize it. And what is left for you is space. And what naturally gets filled in that space is love. Because when you heal these things, you're not going to regress and go backwards. It's an evolution of consciousness that once you've reached a level, you just don't go back to it because you know better.
Yeah. Well, it's like everything we talked about in Quantum Creators was true. What you envision, you create, you like collapse in, infinite possibilities of the quantum field. You collapse the one that you are continuously focusing on. So I think the dieting thing is such a good example where you diet, you lose weight, but you're still so afraid of the, like, you're like, wow, I really didn't feel good in that body. I don't want to go back there. I don't want to go back there. I don't want to go back there. And the whole time you're like envisioning going back there or like feeding energy into that. And I think that's the reason why most diets result in, people like I watched this documentary on The Biggest Loser, and it like interviewed all these people that won The Biggest Loser and just how many of them went right back because they just treated it with like a crazy calorie deficit and ridiculous. Like they didn't heal anything. They didn't make peace with what it was that was creating that scenario for them in the first place, which can be it wouldn't probably be a 10-week show if that's the work they were doing because it can take years, But I think that this is all, to me, as we're talking about all these different areas and ways in which we've been with and transmuted things in our lives, it's all what is now at the foundation of just a different relationship with creating our lives. Because when you heal the part of yourself that was like that you were so motivated to avoid, you also kind of like I feel like the only thing I have energy for is allowing. I just don't like the gasoline that was in my like deep desire to make $1 million. It was fueled by, the fear. It was fueled by, like, there's a lot of people that make millions of dollars based on, like, needing to prove something, or they didn't feel loved when they were a kid. Like, people create from their trauma. It's actually because it's such a potent energy. We're so driven, but it's not fulfilling. That's when you, like, get the thing that you really want and you're still unfulfilled because you never actually just gave yourself what you were really wanting, which was, the love, the acceptance, it's uncomfortable to like my friend Tara has been telling me for months, like, you need to just sit in the mirror and just like be with your body, like just sit naked. And I still have such an aversion to this. It's like it makes me, I'm more open to it now and I've been doing some of this work. But when she first started saying it, or I'd hear her talk about it on her podcast, I have like a physical reaction to it because it feels so uncomfortable to me, you know, which it makes me emotional even to say because that's so clear to me what I need to go and do.
Yeah.
But sometimes this is the journey of like, you know, it can take a long time to just finally you get to a point where like, I'm so freaking tired. I don't want to run from this anymore. Like you were saying, I'm just going to do it. I'm going to be with myself. And then everything changes.
Yeah.
It's like, man, I wish I'd just done that earlier.
Yeah. Well, I know I love this because as we're talking about this, I'm like, oh, I know what my work is. I know what I need to sit with. And this is great because I'm like, here's the invitation. Like, just as we're talking about, it's invitations to ourselves to just actually decide, okay, like, I'm going to do this. And it can be gentle. Like, again, I feel like, you know, we're talking about ego deaths. It might sound a little bit scary in ways or like, oh, deeply uncomfortable. But it's like, usually the moments of like the intense discomfort when you're sitting with something, it very quickly passes. It might be like literally like 5 minutes or like a few seconds of like a very uncomfortable surge. In my experience anyways, like when I sit with these deeper emotions, it can be like, like maybe crying lasts a bit longer. I think about like the grief stuff. Maybe it lasts like a bit longer. Good cry for like 20 minutes or something like that. But sometimes it's a surge that's literally like a few seconds to a few minutes, and then you're like, oh wow, I feel like a brand new person. Could take on the world in a new way. So, you know, just go into it knowing that, okay, it's going to be uncomfortable, but I can do this. I am strong enough. I am capable. I wouldn't be navigating this right now if I didn't have what it takes to also alchemize it within myself. And, you know, of course, like coaches or, you know, somatic containers, like there are a lot of like resources out there. But what I do want to say too, like if you're feeling inspired by this episode and you want to start today, you are so fully capable of starting today, of just deciding that, okay, I've received the message, I've received the invitation, and I'm going to start to do the work. I'm going to start to change the way that I'm looking at things, the way that I'm looking at myself, and I'm going to alchemize. I'm going to be a freaking magician.
Yeah, and to like give a tangible, because I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm seeing things for myself as well. And I know that like, so what it looks like in terms of my own work on body stuff and like, yeah, it's not really, it's like, I think getting engaged, it just put it into the forefront of my mind, not even for like the purpose of a wedding, but just like, wow, I have battled with this long enough. And this next chapter of my life where, you know, I'm hopeful to have kids with Eric and stuff like that. Like, I do not want to carry this with me anymore. It's so freaking exhausting. So a big part of it coming into the forefront for me when we got engaged was just like, this is not in alignment with what I know this next chapter is meant to be about. I do not want to be a mother who's also hating on the very body that, you know, created miracles. And that's what I've witnessed so much of in my life. And I know that what the work is like, yeah, sitting in the mirror and it's not even like to me, like, I love you. It's not like affirmation work. It's like, this is deeply uncomfortable and I'm in it.
Yes.
Like, all the things that come up for me when I even picture doing that is just like, oh man, it sounds so bad. Like, I've had a lot of disgust in my, like, that sounds like such an intense word that I almost don't even want to say it out loud, but like disgust with myself that was learned, you know, and my body and programmed. It makes me really sad to say it, but like, that's an ugly emotion that of course I want to run from and cover up and change circumstances so I don't have to deal with it. But if I'm being really honest with myself, and like I know for you, when you've done your your deep dive after heartbreak, quote unquote, you had to meet the parts of yourself that were like, that felt and believed you were deeply unworthy, right? Deeply not good enough. Like it's sad to admit that to yourself, to be like, wow, I am at times disgusted. Like, oh my God, that makes me want to cry. That's what I need to do. I need to like go and cry and just like, you know, because it's in our system. As long as I didn't even know that was there until I just said this right now. So even me just thinking about doing this work is bringing something up that has obviously been in my body and in my being, probably since I was a little girl, to be honest, on a level, you know, but and then I'm like, okay, I need to, you know, go to the gym and like try and cover it up or fix it so that I don't have to deal with this because it doesn't feel good. but it's so transformational on the other side, because not only does the thing you want come right in, but it stays, and it stays without effort. Right?
Yes. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that.
I didn't mean to like start crying, but that often has happened on our
love it,
podcast
because
episodes.
this is healing.
I know.
This is actually the thing that we can celebrate right now, because you've just lifted off another layer of it. And like, that's how it comes, is like, yeah, again, we take the invitation, we start to explore like what's actually here under the surface, like name the emotions, right? Don't let them just like exist with this energetic grasping power. Like, start to name them and set yourself free. And like, I think, a big part of my work, like even thinking about the heartbreak, or like what I think that I need to like navigate right now, is like levels of shame. And shame is like the heaviest freaking emotion that we can lug around. But it's also one that like once cleared creates so much space. And so like in that, like again, deeply uncomfortable parts, deep parts of ourselves that want to hide, right? So it's like, okay, if you're seeking out to heal the shame, you're going to be like, kind of like, you might have to search for a little while. Like, what is it? Where is it?
Yeah.
Like what, because that part of you has been trained to hide, right?
Yeah.
Trained to hide. But again, it's bringing that to the surface that allows you to be liberated. And I think into some of the heartbreak work or like relationship stuff is like, I always thought, we talked about this, I had to be like Zoe 2.0 or whatever, 5.0 in order then I would be worthy of love. And it's like, because I thought I had to look a certain way. I think, Lo and I'm connecting some dots right now. I'm just going to speak into it. So we were talking about Instagram. Okay. So Instagram for me in my life has always been the sort of app that like reflects, it's like a mirror, reflects my identity. It's like a place where I just would post like quite consistently in previous times in my life, not so much right now, but there was like such an identity to it. And what I realized was like, after I got into my now relationship where I just feel so deeply fulfilled, I just haven't posted that much, right? I think it was like coming into a relationship, also just like identity, where I just stopped doing that so much, or there stopped being this sort of urgency of like, okay, if I go to this place, I need to take a picture and then I need to post it. It sounds very like egotistical, but yeah, that was
no. We were sorry to interrupt, but we were talking about how like in the past 5 years ago, if I had come and visited Zoe, within minutes there would have been an Instagram story about it, because I did the same thing. Like, look, this cool thing that I'm doing. I'm like, so fun with Zoe.
Yes.
Look at us.
Yeah. And what I realized was like, I'm like, because I questioned it. I sat with it for like quite a long time. I'm like, why don't I feel this sort of urgency or this need or this like, why am I not excited about Instagram anymore? But I was like, it wasn't actually excitement. I was posting in search of my person. Mm-hmm. I was like, I think like what I was building was an online identity, like to be visible so that one day my person could see me and they would recognize me on a very like simple sort of like spiritual kind of energetic sense. But like, that's what it was, because there was some type of, a validation, right? But like wanting to make sure that my presence was out there so that somebody can come find me, like my person can come find me. Like, it was very much a searching. I'm searching for my person, so I'm going to continue to like post about this like part of myself, this identity that I have online, in order to like get that person. Yeah.
Was there part of it that was also like constructing a certain identity that person would then see? Like, because your Instagram was very beautiful and like you traveling to all these places and like it was curated, which everybody's is.
Yeah.
Like, was, because I know for me, because I did a lot of what you're also talking about, but it was like, I want it to look good. I want, like, when I'm dating someone and they come across my Instagram, for them to be like impressed with this.
Yes. Yeah, there was that. I think like a lot of it, like at the beginning when I was doing a lot of traveling and stuff, it was very much this creative outlet, like this online sort of scrapbook of my life. And I love it for that. There was a very like genuine desire to like creatively express, like, because I was starting Instagram before I was on YouTube, and like, so it was always this creative outlet, and I loved it for that. But it has changed. It hasn't been that in a very long time. And I think in the posting, in the curating, it was I see it in other ways too, in where a previous version of myself would go to Sephora and spend so much money to like buy this like new glittery like illuminating whatever illuminator to like glow more, so that like my person could see me and like think that I'm pretty. Like, that's really what it was all coming from. It was all coming from this place of I'm looking for my person in this world. And like, they're going to find me only if I'm my sparkliest, only if I've got
Zoe
like,
2.0.
I've got like the expensive mascara, only if I've got this and the, you know, whatever else. And what's interesting is like, I was thinking about this the other day. I'm like, just like sitting there with my partner having breakfast. I'm like, you know, I've got my little like fuzzy headband on, like my pajamas. This would have been like, this would have caused like such a reaction. In like a previous version of myself, like, oh my God, showing up, sitting at breakfast with the person that I like love, like not wearing makeup, like them seeing me like that, like, oh my God.
I always joke that Eric mostly gets the Adam Sandler version of me. You know how he dresses? It's just like the baggiest, and he's usually got like layers of like shorts on top of pants. Like just like that's me most of the time at home.
Yeah.
But luckily he always says, well, comfy fiance is attractive fiance or something like that.
Yes. Yeah. Like, I love that because it's like that's when you get the opportunity to like love and be loved and like receive on that level. And like, you know, makeup was I think makeup and Instagram held a very similar sort of like frequency or whatever that was for me, because when I moved to Bali and like was like, oh, it's just not convenient to wear makeup. It just slides right off because it's like a tropical environment and most people don't wear makeup. It's almost like if you're wearing makeup, it's kind of weird. So for 2 years, like I didn't. And like, I really just got comfortable with seeing myself as beautiful without that and not feeling like I needed it. And there's such freedom in that, but it is very uncomfortable. It's very uncomfortable to, you know, stand in front of the mirror, sit in front of the mirror, looking at yourself and feeling judgment start to arise from this very charged, energetic place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like that's maybe a good place to start wrapping things up, but I don't know. I love where this episode went, especially since I had like breakthroughs of like work that I'm still avoiding because you just don't see it, right? No matter how much I do this and share this kind of work with people, which was basically all that our mastermind was about. It was like shedding the inauthentic layers of self, like the unreal layers of self through different like practices. And this was a big part of it. There's still ways in which I'm like, oh, I'm trying to produce this specific outcome because I don't like this part. Like, I don't like the emotions that come up in this area of my life and I don't want to be with them. So I'll manifest something instead.
Yeah.
Right. And the more that I do this work, the more at ease I become in life because I'm just like, I don't know, like, do I care about like scaling my business to $1 million more than I care about just like being present? Like, not even a little bit. Not even a little bit, to be honest. And I believe I can have both, of course, but I'm just accepting that it might take time as opposed to, or I mean, it might not, I don't know, whatever. Divine, like God is figuring it out for me and I'm just going to like take the ride. And if there is a period where I'm meant to be a lot more, you know, like in the grind per se, then it'll be inspired. Like when I started my new business, which is an art business, I honestly spent 2 years like really hustling, but it wasn't generated at all. It was like I couldn't fall asleep at night because all I was thinking about was what I wanted to do next and how I was going to go, you know, create this next course or scale things further or grow the audience or whatever. And so that also created this level of like, if it's not inherent for me, and I know that there's nothing in the way, like I'm not procrastinating out of fear because I really don't have that anymore. It's just not time. And there will be another, you know, point in time, and I'm sure the not too distant future, where I want to run at it again, but that's not right now. And so like I've been being with the part of myself that I would usually cover up in like lunches and strategy and being overly productive. Like the last couple months for me, I've been like, what if I just kind of flowed with this? And it's brought up its own discomfort where it feels like we're not going to be okay. I'm not going to make enough money. You know, we got a wedding to pay for, and just like being with that part of myself. So like, this is always work I'm doing in different areas, and it's uncomfortable because you temporarily have to just sit with the shit that's coming up. Sorry, I don't know if you swear on your podcast, but
Scale market as explicit.
Okay.
It's going to make it a badass episode.
So yeah, I don't know. I hope this resonates with people because I do think that there is like a collective exhaustion for a lot of people, just in general. And I think we're kind of a lot of people, especially those that got really into manifesting and conscious creation, in like the 2010s and the 2020s or early 2020 kind of thing. I think you can only approach manifestation from that place, that very like masculine energy for so long before you burn out.
Yeah.
Right. But I don't think there's like when I go on like social media and I'm looking at this kind of content, there's still a lot of people that are just very forceful with it. And that's obviously the chapter that they're in. And that served us when it served us. But if you are feeling like there's got to be an easier way, there is.
It's
well,
true.
it's easier in the long run. It's harder in the short term, for sure.
Yes. But, if you're listening to this episode, you attracted it for a reason, right? You listened, you made it through with us. And I do just trust that if you're open to the work, you'll see big change happen quickly. I think like we used to talk about quantum leaps as like, manifesting the next big chunk of money or doing this. But I think that the biggest like quantum leaps are actually just a raise in your consciousness through doing this type of work, because then everything gets easier in your life. You just don't overthink anymore. You don't judge yourself in ways you used to anymore. And then life is just more peaceful and like that, peaceful and more free. And that is a true reward. That is a beautiful, fulfilling, rich life that I think we're all like under the surface is what we're all looking for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thanks so much for having me on, Zoe. This was so fun.
Thanks for having me. We'll have to have you back. I know there's already going to be so many people like in the comments and reaching out to me on Instagram wanting you to come back again. So
well, and I'm excited because now I'm like, oh, okay, I see where there's like some work to be done. And this work is so, once you actually just dive all the way into it, it's crazy what can shift inside. Like even just me on this episode, like looking at, this work, the being with, I had a breakthrough that I didn't know. Like I became aware of something I didn't even know was there. And like now that has like energy, like space to leave me and, be actually healed and released. So yeah, we'll have to do a follow-up episode in a few months of what has transformed, because there will be things, I'm sure.
Definitely. So let me know, guys. Just give me a thumbs up here or share this podcast if it resonated with you. And let me know if you want Lo back. I mean, she's coming back anyways, but like we just love to hear it. We want to know who our OG Lo and Zoe followers are. And just thanks for being with us. Thank you for listening today. And all of Lo's links will be down below. So as she talked about, she started a whole new business called Love and Dots. And it's, oh my gosh, it's just going to take your breath away, like literally, when you go see the beautiful work she does with mandalas and teaching people mandalas. So Love and Dots will be linked down below. Her Instagram will be linked down below. And we love you guys. Thanks for hanging out.
Bye.
Bye.